Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete.
Fans and listeners, welcome to another episode of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. I'm here today with Angie Asche, sports dietitian and owner of Elite Sports Nutrition. Angie is a board certified specialist in sports dietetics, or CSSD. She works in sports and media. She is the founder of Elite Sports Nutrition, a private practice with a team of sports dietitians consulting elite athletes across the country. Angie also works as a nutrition expert for companies in the health and fitness industry and is the author of Fuel Your Body, How to Cook and Eat for Peak Performance. You can check out her website, elitenutrition.com, and follow her on social media, Instagram at Elite Nutrition. That's spelled E-L-E-A-T. When you spell it out, you'll understand. Eat for dietitian, Elite Nutrition. Angie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And Angie and I just chatted a little offline we're glad to finally be connected since we're both sports dietitians, but this is actually our first time meeting. And I would love to have you share with our listeners just kind of a little bit of your background. I know you were an athlete yourself, I think swimming, dance when you were younger. Just what led you to fall in love with sport and fall in love with nutrition?
Yeah, so it really started about sophomore year of high school. I was having a lot of gastrointestinal issues. I wasn't seeing progress, especially when I was swimming. I had just a lot of side aches and I didn't understand why, and I wasn't really seeing improvements to my performance. And so it wasn't until I actually understood a little bit more about what nutrition was, like what actually eating for performance was. And that all kind of started when I met with a sports dietitian. So I didn't know what a sports dietitian was, met with them in high school, and I got to kind of shadow them as part of a career education class. Cool. And it just really opened my eyes. I was like, this is fascinating. The dietitian I met with, he was working full-time for the University of Nebraska at the time. So he was more so overseeing like the football team and those kinds of sports, but it still obviously applied to me too. I'm like, oh, wow, this does make a difference what I eat. So I just kind of started implementing those kinds of things on my own at home. And I noticed a huge difference basically right away, immediately. And wow. So it just really sparked a passion in me. And then I went to college and I studied both exercise science and dietetics because I didn't know exactly 100% what route I would take. I worked as a personal trainer throughout college too. So I did a lot of the strength training side of things there. And then once I started my dietetic internship, I thought, with the one-on-one consulting is the route I want to go versus like a team role versus a university role, because I really just liked that individualization. So yeah. I got to work for a training facility that met with athletes year round. It was in St. Louis. So at the time, like the Rams were still there in St. Louis. So we had some of those coming in. We had a lot of like smaller universities around St. Louis, a lot of those college athletes coming in over, winter breaks and things. And then the Cardinals are there, the Blues are there. So we had a wide variety of both college and pro sports. So kind of got a taste of what that is like to meet with such a wide range of athletes at all different levels. And I thought, this is what I want to do full time. And then my husband, he was playing baseball at the time professionally. So he was traveling all over. And I really wanted to be able to, we got engaged, we were going to get married. I wanted to be able to commute and live with him wherever he was too. So that's where I kind of transitioned into my own private practice and left where I was working in St. Louis to be with him full time. And it was definitely a grind at first to, as building up a private practice, slow and steady, but it just really, truly grew from there, especially word of mouth and getting to work with some really, really cool people being in the baseball world, so from such a personal level, that's really how my baseball experience expanded too. So it just really, really took off there, working with different agents and strength coaches and different referrals like that.
Yeah, I love that your location was such a sports hub. You got so much experience with like the professional sport right away. And, I'm right there with you with my husband's active duty military. And so we did a couple moves and I was like, this is our lifestyle. So I need to establish that, virtual business, be able to take this wherever we go. And little did we know how much, a few years ago, just the world really changed with virtual practices everywhere after the pandemic and everything. So we were a little bit ahead of the game there, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And there's so much that can be done with nutrition virtually. I mean, I love connecting with people in person, but there's so much of our job is like education. Do you agree?
100%. And at first I thought, that's hard. I'm not there in person to make sure that because it is hard. They have, the strength coach there in person every day or the trainer there every day that of course they can still ask those questions to one-on-one, but that's where I feel like it's also important to have that relationship with the other people that they're communicating with. So, having that good relationship with, say, their strength coach, so that that they're also providing, kind of reiterating what you're already telling them. So they're all on the same page. But I think still, especially with texting and with FaceTime, like I get some athletes that just FaceTime me in the middle of the grocery store, or they'll call me out of the blue, like, hey, this is where I'm going. Like, I need your help. So I'm still there in just a few seconds with a phone call. So yeah, I think it's definitely changed, especially like you said, after 2020 so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you to that background of like exercise science, doing personal training. It's just so much. It's so helpful, I think, as a sports dietitian to have that hands-on experience with the physical activity, the training, the different sports. That's, for me too, it was like, I loved sport, but I didn't really want to be a personal trainer for my whole life. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. But it's so nice to kind of merge the two, to really understand what the body is going through and what your athletes are going through.
Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely.
So let's dive into nutrition for baseball and we're going to go softball too for our female athletes, since this is definitely a specialty of yours. Like you said, your husband playing baseball got you connected kind of on more of a closer level to that community. And then you started working in it. And I haven't talked about baseball or softball too much on this podcast. So I really want to pick your brain here.
Oh, good. I'm happy to talk about it.
And I'm going to talk about the two sports interchangeably. Obviously they are different sports, but just, very
similar though. Very similar.
And just more of our male versus female game here. Let's start with the biggest mistakes that you witness in your baseball, softball athletes. What are the biggest mistakes that they're making fueling wise?
Good question. Well, so baseball and softball, they're so unique because there's so many games in such a short amount of time, right? Over 6 months, you're looking at well over 160 games.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So nutrition really has to become kind of that consistent. It's just part of your daily routine, right? Because whatever you're eating the night before, you're fueling the next day, for your next game. It's not like a marathon where you really get that time to plan out for that one race. You're doing it every single day. So I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is skipping meals, especially breakfast, because they have late night games. Maybe their games at 7:00 at night. So then they go to bed really, really late. And then they sleep in. So then they skip a whole meal. They really don't show up to the field or eating anything until maybe about 1:00. So they're already kind of starting in such a large deficit. And for female athletes, especially, the concerns that come with this, with underfueling too. But that's one of the biggest mistakes I see. Caffeine use is another huge mistake. I've had a few baseball players in particular that, consume well over 60 ounces of coffee. And they're like, I just don't know why I'm not sleeping. Well, we know just how much of an impact sleep has on your performance. And so trying to time it out while also obviously knowing that ergogenic effect that happens with caffeine, like, okay, we want that benefit of having it pre-workout, but when your game is at 7, it's hard to really plan that out. Because if you're having that additional coffee at 6 o'clock, and then you're going to try to go to bed at, say, 10:30, 11, that's going to be really hard to do. So trying to also kind of take advantage of the timing and the total dosage and see if there's a way we can manage it, get it a little bit earlier in the day. And again, just kind of manage that dose so it's not so large and affecting sleep.
Yeah.
And there's also just so much that goes into, making sure that they're getting good sleep too. But those are some big mistakes I see. Poor timing with that pre and post meal too. Maybe eating way too early of a meal and then nothing before the game, or eating too heavy of a meal, like post game, especially higher fat meals, and not enough, especially protein, carbohydrates, things like that. So just really the composition of meals and poor timing of meals. Really a lot of things. now that I think about it, a lot.
You're like, wait, there's a lot more mistakes too.
Wait.
That's great. Let's dive into those more. That was really insightful. So I want to talk about that timing, because it's like, if they're staying up later, can we just, because I think a lot, especially college kids, they have weird schedules too, night classes, and then they sleep in. Like, can we just shift our day, or do we really have to wake up to get that breakfast in? Can you dig into that a little bit more?
Good question. I mean, first I would try to make sure you're getting that 8, at least minimum 8, before, if we're talking college athletes, hopefully even 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And then go from there. So, okay, if I go to bed at this time, the problem is a lot of people have a hard time shutting off, right? They have a hard time just completely just shutting off, going to bed. So if we can just try to push that a little bit earlier, make sure you're getting that 9 hours, wake up. If you're like, I have zero appetite when I first wake up in the morning, then first I would assess what you're eating at night too. Mm-hmm. But in the morning, even just something like a shake and a banana, something like that. Handful of almonds.
Wake up snack.
Yeah. Yes. Like a wake up snack. I love that. That's perfect. Yeah. So it's not even a breakfast, because breakfast can almost sound overwhelming to people, especially if they don't eat anything at all. So I love that. And then that way they're able to get just a little bit of food in before they go on with their day. I think it's just, and especially from a weight gain perspective, or if they're really struggling to maintain their weight during the season and they're tending to lose weight, a lot of it goes back to just, they're not eating frequently enough. They're really just narrowing their window so small of eating that even if they ate really great substantial meals, they're only doing it in, say, a 6, 7, 8 hour window. That's not going to be enough to get in as many calories as they need.
Yeah, you just need more time to get the fuel that you need. I've seen this problem a lot, like I said, not sport specific, but age specific with the college athletes and just college students. I've seen that a lot of them, like, oh my gosh, you didn't eat breakfast until 11:30 in the morning. And they're like, oh, well, I only woke up at 10:30. And I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. But then you only ate from 11:30 to 8 p.m. It just wasn't enough time to get the fuel in.
Yeah, right. So and it's hard.
Really,
it is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. But, and so again, going back to the importance of sleep to then schedule your meals out a little better, and then touching on caffeine, I want to dive into this too, because I actually spoke to my clients about this recently, and just that optimal dose of caffeine. But we actually don't, I was talking to my clients a little bit about energy drinks, because, there's so many energy drinks that are 200, 250, 300 milligrams of caffeine. But then we go back to our OG Red Bull. It's only 80 milligrams.
Yeah. Which is more appropriate. That's a shot of espresso, maybe a little more than a shot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, Red Bull's got quite, I'm not endorsing them. I'm just saying they've been around for a while. They've actually got quite a lot of, research on their product. They've got a high performance team, and it's maybe this mindset of got to stay awake for the game, got to get energy. Maybe we get that ergogenic benefit in a smaller dose still, right?
Yeah.
Do you work on that with your clients of maybe just we need a smaller dose to still get the benefit?
Well, yes. And I just wanted to mention again, we're not in any shape or form endorsing Red Bull, but I think they are the only energy drink that's also NSF certified for sport, which is also very important, because I tell athletes this all the time. When you turn around an energy drink label, it doesn't even have a nutrition facts label. It has a supplement facts label. So a lot of people just assume it's, not a pill, it's not a powder, so it's just food, but really it's technically a supplement. So that's something to factor into, especially if you're drug tested at that college level, professional level. But yeah, I think there is definitely something to be said for the amount of caffeine having less of an impact the more you use it. And we know this too, I'm sure, as if you're listening today and you're a big coffee drinker, you're like, yeah, I can easily drink a full pot. You have your
I'm holding
there.
up my coffee cup right now.
you can easily have like a full pot and then just like go take a nap. Like some people are like that. So, and it's interesting. There actually is a gene too that we know about that people metabolize caffeine very differently depending on this certain type of gene that they have. So, and I'm sure you obviously know this as well, but for listeners, it's really fascinating because some people, caffeine, even just the smallest bit, really affects them so much more than someone else who, like I said, could easily just drink a pot of coffee and take a nap. So the genetic factor plays a role. And then also, yes, how much you have of it. So if you're drinking, 40 ounces a day, then I would say try to dial back on that because it's probably no longer even having any sort of benefit whatsoever on you because you're just past the point of it having a benefit. So dial back and then, maybe progressively increase just a tiny bit more, but hopefully then you won't even need as much because you're not having to down 40, 60 ounces of coffee a day.
Right. We could drink some water instead.
Yes.
That might help
water is great.
That brings me to another point, just thinking about caffeine use, supplement use in like professional baseball. I don't know if this is a thing in softball or not. You can let me know. But is like nicotine use still, in like dip, is that still pretty common to keep people awake during the games and stuff? Oh,
yes. That? Yes. And just, from just like a distraction type benefit too, like just kind of like taking your mind off of things. I think that's one other reason why players do it too. But it's definitely common in baseball still. Yes. I don't see it as much in softball, honestly.
Girls aren't into it as much. They never have been historically.
Yeah. So, but I definitely see it more in baseball still, which obviously we know that's not great for you either.
Right. And I'm just thinking about stimulant stacking too. It's like the caffeine, the chew is a stimulant. And then if they aren't using an NSF certified energy drink or something, what other stimulants are in there? Like that's a lot that can really keep them up at night, take a toll on their nervous system.
Well, and also affect their appetite too. We know all those different stimulants can affect appetite. So if you're someone who's really struggling to consume enough calories and you're taking all those stimulants on top of caffeine and nicotine and everything else, it's going to really start to hinder your fueling, how much you're actually getting in, throughout the whole day.
Yeah. This is so I spent almost 5 years working in with the military and special operations. And this is really reminiscent of choices that they made as well to stay awake for like long operations and training and stuff. Just lots of dip and caffeine. And it was like, oh, okay, but you want to build muscle and you're not eating any chicken.
That's the thing. That's why nutrition, eat food. That's why nutrition is just so important because like I said, the season is so long and they do have games like literally every single day. And so it does get to the point that they're looking for things to help with their energy levels with everything else. And they go to things that are outside of, that's another big mistake I should add to this top nutrition mistakes, but they go to things that are not nutrition related. Whereas if they really, figure out their nutrition and the types of foods they should be eating to support muscle recovery and everything else, then they'll feel so much better versus having to rely on all of these stimulants day after day.
Right. Absolutely. And bringing this back to, again, baseball and softball, I just want to highlight the point you said about so many games that they have and tournament weekends that are just like last forever. Very often in nutrition, we talk about your diet for training and then like your game day diet. But with what, the way you're expressing this lifestyle, they kind of are somewhat one and the same. There might be a few like a little extra carb or here's your recovery drink, in between games on game day. But otherwise, you really have to be game ready all the time. So your training diet is your game diet.
Exactly. I'd say the only exception would maybe be like a starting pitcher who only pitches once every about 5 days. They can have a little bit more of that routine. Whereas, if you're, say, a relieving pitcher, and that's another common mistake I see because as a reliever, you may not even play at all an entire game, but maybe you were in the dugout snacking on things like cereal and honey stingers and bananas the whole game. And you're wondering, why am I gaining so much weight during the season? And it's because you might be over preparing a little bit, but it's also difficult because you don't know if you're going to play or not. So it's kind of just, I think, finding that happy medium of fueling properly and not overdoing it with like baseball's a slow sport, right? It's slow. Like it's very long. The innings are pretty slow. I watch a lot of baseball games, so I feel they're slow. I'm sure the players are like, it's not slow, but in general, I do tend to see that as a common mistake too, of them kind of overeating a little bit too much if they don't need it. Whereas on the flip side, there's plenty of softball players and baseball players that undereat and they aren't eating anything in the dugout, so it really just depends on the person. And that's why it's so individual, even to like, depending on position that you play, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be one of my next questions, but there's probably no answer because it's individualized. But was just like, how the heck do you calculate like the energy burn or like the macronutrient needs when you don't know how long a game is going to last? Or are we just standing around a lot? Are we in the dugout a lot? Or was this a really highly active game? You don't really know what it's going to be.
It varies so much. And I will say the fitness trackers can be a very good thing and a very bad thing. In the case of my female athletes, I do think that they tend to over obsess over those numbers a little bit too much.
Yeah.
This is just in my own experience, especially in endurance sports. I think it becomes disordered, just kind of like how much they obsess over those numbers and the data. Mm-hmm. My male athletes, and this is becoming a lot more common in MLB, I feel like they just send me that information. They send me the data and they like tell me what to do with it. And so I will say probably 90% of them wear like a Whoop band, an Aura ring. So that helps me just get a little bit better indication of their energy expenditure so that I know, okay, this is what you're burning on a day that you play versus this is on a, I have one athlete right now who's rehabbing. Yeah. And I can see just how much their energy expenditure has changed due to kind of just like how their routine has changed. So I think those wearables really do help to figure out their macronutrient, their energy needs. And then we can kind of gauge from there after we have the data. We don't have to do it every single day, but say like, all right, this is about an average amount of what you burn when you are playing. This is about when you're not playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think even for the people who are sensitive to the numbers or over obsessed over it, what you just said of like, hey, get yourself a sports dietitian, just send them the data. Then you can wear it, but not investigate it yourself. Send it to a third party who knows what to do with it.
It's like data overload. Yeah. I've had a lot of people be like, I don't even know what to do with this data. Like, what do I do with it? What do I do with my HRV? Like, I don't even know.
Right. So send it to a qualified professional.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to obsess over it. Yeah. I think that probably would be the best way to estimate needs for these ball sport games because it just varies so much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Well, that's super helpful. Let me think if I have any other questions. Any other mistakes or things pop up when you're thinking about priorities? I think we went over a lot.
Yeah, priorities. I would say, like I said, recovery is such an important piece. Yeah. So I think just prioritizing recovery nutrition. And what I mean by that is like, are you eating the right foods to help support that muscle recovery? And I like to give the example of antioxidants or polyphenols. And when we have so much stress on our muscles, so much stress on our body over time, our needs for these polyphenols, for these antioxidants, they increase. So looking at certain foods that are excellent sources of this, look at obviously fruits and veggies. And most people are not eating enough fruits and vegetables for sure. So if we can get more of those, sneak more of those into their diet, that's great. Almonds are another fantastic option here. The skins of almonds have polyphenols. They have 20% of the daily value of magnesium. And we know that impact that magnesium has on reducing muscle soreness too. And they have 50% of your vitamin E of the daily value for vitamin E per serving in one serving of almonds, which is huge. 50% and vitamin E is an antioxidant. So avocados is another great option that's rich in vitamin E and also rich in the antioxidants. So there's just, the more we get of these whole foods consistently into your diet and realize that nutrition is the true piece of the puzzle here for muscle recovery,
right? And
not all the other stuff. The ice baths and those kinds of things, like, sure, they might help, but if your nutrition is awful, it's not really going to get you very far.
Right. That's what's doing the work right internally on a metabolic level, make those changes at the muscle site. And as you said, almonds too, I was just like, oh, that like just feels like such an easy packable It just like makes
Totally.
sense for
Yes.
athletes, oh, let's have trail mix or almonds or some form of, we always think fruits and veggies, like you said, we need those
Yep.
as well. But sometimes it feels, especially when you're on the go, again, I'm thinking tournament weekend, like, how am I going to pack my vegetables? You can, but maybe packing, some almonds or some snack bags of trail mix is a good option too.
Well, we know like in softball and baseball, they tend to snack on things like sunflower seeds all the time too. Like this is a great opportunity to also throw in almonds or before a game, before in between, like like you mentioned, the long tournaments, especially in softball, this is common. You could have like almond butter and banana sandwiches on whole grain bread or something like that. And maybe say like a applesauce pouch, something like that. Just really simple, but still whole food ingredients mixed in there too.
For the softball athletes that I've worked with over the years, I've definitely been like, it's PB&J or, almond butter and jelly sandwiches for in between games are just clutch. Because again, like I'd love to say turkey and cheese, but like, you don't know when like those tournaments get crazy.
Those tournaments, they could be hot too.
Yeah, you don't. So it's just like just PB&J is just safe for almond butter.
You don't want, you don't want deli meat sitting out for like 8 hours. Yeah,
exactly.
It's questionable.
Exactly. Like mix up with different bread or put it on a bagel, but like put it in a wrap. You can make it like different, but it just works. Agree. Those are some great ideas. So okay, so earlier you mentioned that in softball and baseball we have people who are underfueling. We also have some people who might be over snacking a little bit. So we've got a wide variety, but from a physiology standpoint, this sport, we need power, we need short bursts of speed, and we need power behind the bat. So strength and weight to power ratio is key. We want to build muscle, that bigger, faster, stronger slogan.
Yeah, we say mass equals gas.
I love that. Mass equals gas. And you know what? We really can apply this to all sports. We really can, but definitely something that in these sports we're really encouraging. And a lot of people are looking to gain weight and gain muscle and gain weight. I saw on your Instagram like links, you have an online manual, performance weight gain manual. So go check that out if you need more. But we're going to talk about it now a little bit. I think you have a quote on your website, that you hear people saying all the time. I feel like I'm eating so much all the time, but I can't put on weight. So that's problem number one. I'm eating all the time and I can't put on weight. Another problem that I hear is that clients that I've had, like they want to gain weight, but with air quotes, in the healthy way. So I want to dive into two of these things. Let's first talk about like, is there a healthy weight gain? Like what does that mean to you?
Good question. So two really good topics here, I feel like. So the first one where you mentioned, I feel like I'm eating all the time, but I can't gain weight. I like to say that eating often or eating frequently doesn't equal eating enough. So there's this assumption that, I've ate 7 times today, but you have to look at the how calorie dense those foods were. And so I like to give the example of like goldfish crackers. And goldfish crackers are, if you look at one serving, it's maybe like 140, 150 calories. And so you feel, and that could be a snack for a lot of high school athletes, right? So a high school athlete might be like, I just ate, a big thing of goldfish crackers and that was my snack. That's a really low calorie snack compared to let's say, if you swap that out with something like the same serving size of say like a half a cup of, again, I'm bringing up almonds as an example again, but you're over doubling that amount of calories, but you're also getting more protein. You're getting more, which we know is important for muscle growth. You're getting more vitamin E and so many other micronutrients there. So it's looking at the calorie density, the nutrient density of that food and really understanding, okay, just because you ate frequently doesn't mean you ate enough calories. So that's number one. And I like to demonstrate that with kind of like a nutrient analysis with my clients. So I'll show them just how far off they are from actually meeting their energy needs. So that's number one. The second part of your question, gaining it in a healthy way, I think could have two different meanings. I get this question a lot. They don't want to gain weight too quickly is like a big part of it too. And we know that when your calorie surplus is much higher than your maintenance calories, then you do tend to put on more total mass, which will include both muscle and fat. So for a lot of people, that's not what they want. They want to really try to just maximize muscle growth while minimizing fat gain. So really, in order to do that, we're looking at gaining weight in a healthy way by having that calorie surplus be a little bit smaller, say anywhere from about, I usually like about 400 calories. If we can get like a 400 calorie surplus, that's good. Sometimes 250 for athletes just often isn't enough to really notice a dent.
I found that too. And I think it's because sometimes we burn an extra 250 calories because that workout that day was a little harder or whatever. And so I found the same thing. We need to go a little bit higher. Yeah.
So I say like 400 is kind of the sweet spot, up to 500, maybe, again, depending on the person. But a lot of times people will try to gain weight and they will like up it by like 1,000 calories. And they'll be like, I gained all this, fat too. And I don't know why. And it was just too much of a surplus too quickly. So that could be part of it too. So, and again, really focusing on those nutrient dense foods. So don't just think, oh, I'm just going to add calories because I'm adding calories. We know that protein is really important here, but also fat and carbohydrates. But where are those total calories coming from? Can we make sure you're still getting enough polyphenols to support recovery so you don't feel awful and sluggish? Can we make sure that you're still getting enough of all of the amino acids that you need from your protein, and you're not just, adding, let's say, supplements. A lot of people just rely on supplements. So yeah, I think it's important to look at where those calories are coming from and making sure that it's a small increase. And you can do this, quite a few different ways. I always like to just take what you're already doing and increase it just a little bit. So maybe with your toast, if you're just doing, say, butter, or you're just doing jelly or something on your toast, can you add avocado to that? Now you've added a significant amount of calories. Or if you have steamed vegetables, can you drizzle some olive oil on top? Obviously, fats is probably the easiest way to up your calories at a meal.
It is, yeah.
Without noticing, or if you're
sprinkle
eating
some cheese on top of something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you're eating 5 ounces of chicken, can you make it 6? Can you just do tiny little increases and look at the meals that are the easiest to increase, the ones that you're not already feeling overly full at, and start with those. And then, of course, we love smoothies. We love shakes because they're just easy to load up with lots of calories and drink.
Yeah. Whole milk. You can add nut butters. You can add flax seeds. You can sneak
you can add oats to it.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oats,
Yogurt. Mm-hmm.
Yogurt. So, and then obviously the fruit, any frozen things, like you can add so much in there. I've had people add like a spoonful of coconut oil right to a smoothie if they need those extra fat. Flavor wise, it's a little nicer in a smoothie than like olive oil.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other creative things, adding honey, agave, maple syrup right to a smoothie.
I like the higher calorie fruit too, like the mango, the pineapple, the bananas. Those are such an easy thing to throw in there. You could even do, prunes or dates are a great addition in there too.
Yeah.
So
I've done dates in a smoothie before, and it gives a little texture, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. A lot of sweetness too.
So this is great. So, bumping up, I think I'm thinking behaviorally. So from the nutrition standpoint, okay, bumping up 400, 500 calories is good to where this is more, it's stimulating the body for growth, anabolic phase. But behaviorally, some people who push it even further, even though you might need to, like maybe you really want to gain that extra, you need that extra weight. I think behaviorally, it's hard to keep up with too. Like if you were to just increase your calories by 1,000 calories a day, like you might be stuffed in a week and start like resenting food. And I've definitely seen that a lot in my weight gain clients. They're like all motivated for like a week, and then we're just sick of eating and we just don't want to do it anymore. And so I think behaviorally, starting with those small goals can be in just like a smaller total amount. I'm saying small, it's still not small though, but it's still significant, but just like, then you get used to that. And that's normal for your body to eat X amount now. Okay. Now I can increase a little bit more next month or whatever.
It's just so much more realistic. And it's kind of like I give the example of fiber, because I see so many people under eating fiber, maybe only 8 to 10 total grams a day, when in reality they need, upwards of 25, if not more grams.
Oh my gosh, and so different clientele. My clients eat too much fiber.
Too much fiber.
Angie, well, I have seen 100 grams of fiber a day. I have.
I think 74 is my highest with a vegan athlete, but
70 is easy day for my clients. I'm like, it is literally all of their goal of like,
especially because you work with a lot of endurance athletes too. So that's way too much fiber for them.
They've got stomach issues every day. I'm like, stop eating fiber.
Well, so with fiber, like if they are, interesting. Well, MLB needs to learn a little bit of things here with these clients of yours that are eating 100 grams, because they will tell me like, that's not possible to eat 32 grams. But anyway, so let's say 30 grams is your goal and you're only eating 8. Well, then if you jump the gun and go all the way to 60, like you're going to have some serious gastrointestinal issues, right? So the same thing goes with such a large increase in total calories too, because you are increasing, think of where those calories are coming from: carbs, fat, protein. So if you're going from, 200 grams of carbs and now you're eating 400 grams of carbs, like that's also a big increase. You're going to feel probably not as great unless you're trying to like load for a marathon or something. But still, it's such a huge jump that you really want to take it slow and increase it at a gradual pace so you don't have any of those side effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Baseball, softball athletes, get together with the endurance athlete, share your fiber tips, help each other out. Find that middle ground around 30 grams a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's tummies will be happier. So I want to shift now and still talking about food and making all of this work. You published a cookbook a few years ago. When was it that it was published?
It was 2021. So it's been 3 years as of this month, actually. Yes.
Congratulations on doing that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Definitely am inspired and motivated. I'm like, I know I want to write some sort of book someday. So why did you settle on writing more, like, obviously there's nutrition tips all throughout it, but like more of a cookbook style? Why was that like, this is what you want to do?
So the light bulb moment really came for me when I had like a whole week of clients just back to back. And I kept telling them, and they kept asking me for resources that were educational from a sports nutrition standpoint. Like they wanted to learn more about sports nutrition, but then they would also ask me about like simple recipes that they could make in, like one of them was like, I'm going to be in this hotel room, rehabbing for 2 weeks, so I have a fridge and microwave. So I'm like, okay, so I'm like trying to get all these resources of, well, at that time, the only sports nutrition resources were really like textbooks. Like I'm not going to recommend a 400-page textbook to a 19-year-old in the minor leagues, they don't want that. Right. Super simple. And then also on the flip side of things, like I was, Googling, trying to find all these, like what good recipes can you throw together with a fridge and microwave? And I'm like, man, I wish there was just something that was all condensed in one place for the athlete that really wanted that sports nutrition guidance, but didn't need to study for like an exam on it. Like they wanted that education. They wanted to apply to them, and they wanted it presented in a really simplified form where it's educational, not only for the high school senior who's going off on their own to live in college for the first time, but also for, the seasoned. Like I know I've had a lot of health professionals actually read and still use this book and get some tidbits of information that even they either didn't know, or it just kind of helps refresh their knowledge and educate their own clients on it. I get that a lot, especially from like personal trainers and strength coaches that utilize it too. And it's just, again, it's just a really great way for them to be able to reiterate some of that nutrition information, because they're asked those questions all the time too. So, and then the recipe piece, I really wanted it to be so simple, where I have a whole chapter that's just like basic, like new like cooking basics, to the point it teaches you how to like boil eggs, right? Just because a lot of people don't know how to do that. So
they don't, or how to cut something properly.
Right. Or like if a recipe says mince versus dice, like what does that even mean? So basically taking the Googling out of it and putting it right there in a chapter for them. In there, I also do talk about nourishment over numbers. So basically, how is that food nourishing you both physically and mentally? So not just focusing on the macronutrients and why that's important. And while I do have the nutrition facts for each recipe, it's actually at the very, very back of the book, because I wanted it to not be the focus of the recipe, but I still want it to be there, because I do have a lot of, let's say type 1 diabetics that need to know the carbohydrates of a dish, or, here I just felt like it was necessary, because if I'm talking about getting 2 grams per kilogram body weight of protein per day, and then if I don't have how much protein is in the recipe, that's not super helpful. So I still wanted that information in there. And then I also wanted a resource that had weight gain. in there because I could not find a sports nutrition book that wasn't like mass gainer 101. Like I wanted just something that had like, what do I do if I'm trying to gain weight? So I have 3 different like meal plans in there with like sample meal plans. And obviously, of course, it's not very individualized, but there's a weight management one. So people who are looking to manage their weight, there's a weight gain option. And then there's a vegan vegetarian. So there are a lot of plant-based options in there just to encourage athletes to eat more plants. But then there are some chicken and fish meals throughout the book too.
That's great. I love that that book just encompasses so much. And I think definitely our younger athletes that really need the how to cook is important. If you want a good recipe, so many of them, I do look online, you don't even understand the language or you don't even have the right utensils. Or like you said, these athletes that might be trying to cook out of a hotel room just with a mini fridge, microwave, like we don't have all the stuff. How can I still get a great meal in? And there's honestly not too many resources. To the extent, I want to be transparent with you, Angie. I do not have your book. However, I have gifted it.
That's nice.
My clients.
I need to send you one then.
I know. I've given it, I think, to 4 clients where I just go online and I order it because I give gifts to my clients from time to time and they need cookbooks. They need more recipes. And when I think about sports nutrition and cooking, your book, I've sent it to 4 clients, your book. And then we, in the endurance world, people love the Run Fast, Eat Slow cookbooks.
I love
too.
Love it.
I think yours has more of the sports, like they're knowledgeable, but they're not dietitians. They're very knowledgeable about food, but they're not dietitians. So yours has a little bit more of, I think, the sports nutrition, like facts in there. But yeah, that's really, I can't think of really any other good cookbooks. Well, there's more, but I don't know.
And that's kind of what I noticed was lacking on the market was something for team sports. Like there was so much for endurance athletes and you had like the no meat athlete and you had the Run Fast, Eat Slow and the Eat Fast, Cook Fast, or, their second book. I don't know the name of it, but it's also great. But it was all so much for endurance athletes. And so I thought, there's really nothing for like the team athlete, like I said, who's going off to college, living in a dorm, doesn't have full access to a stove and an oven. And not every recipe, you can't make every recipe in your hotel room. I don't want to mislead you there, but there is a little logo there, symbol that says if you don't need a kitchen, it's NK for no kitchen. So there are definitely options in there for those types of athletes. But ideally, if you have an oven or a stove, you can make every recipe in the book.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So just kind of thinking about like, as you went through that process of making the cookbook and finding out like what athletes needed, do you have any of your like maybe most favorite tips or favorite recipes that you'd be willing to just kind of share? Favorite meal for an athlete to put together easily? Maybe we can even focus on the favorite recovery meal.
Yeah. Okay. So
earlier.
Well, the first meal that came to mind was honestly the salsa chicken bowls. And the only reason I mention those is because it is something that like a lot of high school athletes, I have them make before they even get to college, because all you need is chicken breasts, a jar of salsa, and a crock pot. So really easy, like first dish, but also because so many athletes rely on places like Chipotle and Qdoba, and they just get so expensive that I think just like once they realize that you can easily make these burrito bowls at home and it's actually really easy and a lot cheaper, then I think like it's just very eye-opening for them. So that one is definitely one that comes to the top of my mind there. As far as recovery, I mean, I do have some great smoothies in there that have those recovery ingredients, the ingredients that obviously like support, like they're rich in the polyphenols, like I said. So maybe there's things like nuts, like almonds, or there's seeds in there. You mentioned the flaxseed earlier, or they have lots of fruits and veggies in them. So definitely the smoothie section. And I have like a little chart that shows you like the best methods to build a smoothie.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the salsa chicken idea and how easy then you can do microwavable rice, or it's really easy to boil rice as well. Add canned corn.
Exactly.
Canned
black beans.
Yeah. I love that because it's so versatile. You can go like the super easy method, or you can like, okay, now I'm going to have like I'm going to chop some fresh veggies and add that to it. It's like there's different levels.
Right. And an Instant Pot or a crock pot is something that, you can easily have in a dorm room or a hotel room too. So yeah.
Cool. Well, Angie, this was a great conversation. I think hopefully our listeners appreciated diving into softball and baseball needs a bit more, diving into the weight gain piece, cooking. Definitely go check out Fuel Your Body, How to Cook and Eat for Peak Performance. Like I said, I won't be a hypocrite. I actually don't have it myself, but I've sent it and my clients have liked it because there's very few resources out there. So thank you for, helping the problem, helping solve the problem that existed. That's why I've sent it, because I'm like, yeah, this is, I knew who you were.
Thank you.
I knew you were a trusted sports dietitian. So try this cookbook. And they've liked it. They've done recipes and it's worked out for them. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
It's fun.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel, give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-study course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide. Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new Coaches Toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a Red S quiz to see if Red S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.